My name is Amber, and the day my life split in two started in a parking lot off the highway. We were on a family trip, the kind that was supposed to bring us closer together. Instead, it turned into the moment they decided I was a burden that needed to be fixed or thrown away. I still remember standing there with my backpack half unzipped, watching the car idling in front of me while my mom lectured me about being irresponsible because I forgot my wallet in the motel room. "You always expect everyone else to clean up your mess," she snapped, hand clenched around the car keys. "Maybe if we leave you here for a while, you'll finally grow up." I thought she was bluffing. I laughed it off, tried to apologize, tried to explain I was just tired. The engine revved. The door slammed. My last glimpse was her eyes, cold and determined, and my family looking anywhere but at me. Then the car actually pulled away. I stood there, on the edge of the parking lot, dust and exhaust blowing into my face as the taillights got smaller and smaller. People walked past me, bags in hand, laughing, arguing, living regular lives. I was just left, on purpose. In that moment, something inside me shifted. I could call. I could beg. I could wait for them to come back and pretend this was just a joke gone too far. Or I could decide that if they drove away from me that day, they would never again be the people I ran back to. What would you do if the people who were supposed to protect you used abandonment as a lesson? If you want to know how that one lesson ended up costing my family their reputation, their home, and everything they thought they controlled, stick around until the end of this story and subscribe so you don't miss what really happened 8 years later. I didn't cry right away. I just stared at the empty stretch of road where the car had disappeared and waited for the sound of an engine coming back. A minute passed, then 5, then 10. My phone buzzed once in my pocket. A single text. "Figure it out. That's how you learn." No. "We'll be back later." No. "We love you." Nothing. That was when my hand started shaking. The kind of tremor that begins in your chest and leaks into your fingers, like your body has finally understood you're on your own. I sat down on the curb with my backpack and did the only thing I could think of. I opened the Maps app and searched for the nearest bus station. If they wanted me to figure it out, fine. I would. Just not in the way they expected. The bus station was a 40-minute walk along a side road. The sky was painfully bright, and the heat pressed against my shoulders as I walked. I replayed everything in my head. The lectures, the constant comparisons, the way I was always the difficult one. Maybe this was never about responsibility. Maybe it was about control. By the time I reached the bus station, my feet hurt and my throat burned, but my decision was clear. I bought a one-way ticket back toward the city instead of home. If they could choose not to come back for me, I could choose not to go back to them. The city felt loud and anonymous when I arrived. I had a bit of cash, my phone, and whatever was in my backpack. That was it. The first night, I found the cheapest room I could in a rundown motel that smelled like bleach and old cigarettes. I lay there staring at the ceiling, the air conditioner rattling above me, and tried to breathe through the panic clawing at my ribs. I knew I had to find work fast. Food, rent, bus fare. None of it would wait for my feelings to catch up. The next morning, I walked the streets, scanning windows for help wanted signs. My legs ached, but I kept moving, passing clothing stores, nail salons, kiosks, anything that looked like it might give me a shot. That's when I saw it. A small coffee shop tucked between a dry cleaner and a bookstore, with a handwritten sign taped to the window. Part-time barista needed. No experience required. I stepped inside, the bell above the door chiming as I entered. The smell of coffee wrapped around me, warm and grounding. Behind the counter, a woman with tired eyes and a kind smile glanced up. "Hey there," she said. "You looking for coffee or something else?" "Actually," I replied, voice hoarse, "I saw the sign. I'm looking for a job." She studied me for a moment, taking in my wrinkled clothes and the way I clutched my backpack like a life raft. "I'm Sarah," she said finally. "You ever worked in a place like this before?" "No," I admitted. "But I'm a fast learner. I really need this." Most people would have shrugged, told me to fill out a form and wait. Instead, she sighed, nodded toward an empty table, and said, "Sit for a second. Tell me what's going on." I didn't plan on telling her everything, but the words spilled out anyway. The trip, the parking lot, the text message that felt like a knife. I watched her expression shift from curiosity to disbelief to anger on my behalf. "They left you there," she repeated slowly, "on purpose." I nodded, gripping the edge of my chair. "People like that don't deserve the version of you that comes after this," she said quietly. "You know that, right?" Her words hit harder than any lecture I'd ever gotten at home. Someone who had just met me, who owed me nothing, was already treating me with more basic care than my own family. "Okay," she continued, standing up. "You can start today. It'll be part-time at first, but if you show up and work hard, I'll see what I can do. We close late and sometimes it gets hectic. Think you can handle that?" I swallowed, feeling a rush of gratitude and something else. Resolve. "Yeah," I said. "I can handle it." That night, after my shift, I sat alone in the small staff room, staring at the reflection of my tired face in the metal of a storage cabinet. My phone sat on the table next to me, screen blank. No calls, no missed messages, no apologies. I opened a new note and typed a single sentence. Day 1 of my life without them. Working at the coffee shop became my anchor. The hiss of the espresso machine, the clatter of cups, the endless stream of orders. It gave my brain just enough noise to drown out the quiet parts that still missed them. Sarah showed me everything, from how to steam milk without burning it to the regular customers' complicated orders. She didn't ask for perfection, she asked for effort. And I gave her everything I had. I crashed every night in a cramped room I rented from a woman who didn't care who I was as long as I paid on time. I ate staff meals, instant noodles, and whatever was on sale at the grocery store. It wasn't glamorous, but it was mine. Nobody could take it away on a whim. One slow afternoon, a woman came in wearing a jacket that caught my eye. It wasn't expensive, but it was clever, patched, altered, made unique. I couldn't stop glancing at it as I took her order. "You like it?" she asked. "It's interesting," I said. "You changed it yourself?" She smiled. "Yeah, I thrift old pieces and flip them. People pay more for a story, you know?" A story. That word stuck in my head for the rest of the day. After closing, I lingered to wipe down tables even though Sarah had already told me I could go. "You okay?" she asked, hanging up her apron. "Do you ever feel like your whole life is proof that you were a mistake to someone?" I blurted out. She paused, then leaned against the counter. "I used to," she said. "Now I feel like my life is proof they were wrong." That night, I opened my phone and recorded a video. Just for me, at first. My face was puffy from lack of sleep, my hair pulled into a messy knot. "Day 27 without them," I said quietly. "I made it through another double shift. I'm still here. They haven't called. I haven't begged." I talked about the trip, about the parking lot, about the choice to take the bus in the opposite direction of home. When I finished, I almost deleted it. Instead, I saved it into a folder I titled No Return. On my rare days off, I wandered through thrift stores, running my fingers along racks of clothes. I started buying a few cheap pieces, hand-stitching them at night in my room. I didn't have a sewing machine, so I used needle and thread, improvising. I cut sleeves, added panels, swapped buttons. Each piece became something new. One evening, I showed a jacket to Sarah in the back room. It was patched with fabric from 2 different shirts, the seams uneven but intentional. "You did this?" she asked, turning it over in her hands. "Yeah, just experimenting." "It's good," she said, sounding genuinely impressed. "You should try selling these. Even just a few. Put them on a rack near the register. See if they move. The idea felt terrifying and thrilling. Why would anyone buy something I made? Because it's different, she said. Because it has a story. And because you're more capable than you think. We hung 3 of my altered pieces on a small rolling rack near the counter with a handwritten sign, "Custom Upcycled Pieces." I watched them between orders like a hawk. It took an hour for the first one to sell. The woman who bought it smiled at me as I rang her up. "This feels like something someone put their whole heart into," she said. She had no idea how literal that was. That night, I filmed another video. "Day 63, I said. Someone just paid real money for something I made with my hands. The girl they left behind is selling clothes in a coffee shop." Imagine that. I didn't post the videos anywhere yet. They were my private archive, my way of keeping receipts. Not financial ones, but emotional. Proof of every inch I crawled without them. Months turned into a year. I saved every extra dollar. I moved from a rented room into a tiny studio. I upgraded from hand stitching to a secondhand sewing machine. I signed up for free online business courses, learning about pricing, marketing, margins. The more I learned, the more a quiet, cold thought settled in. If they ever came back, it wouldn't be because they missed me. It would be because they needed what I had built. One night, sitting on my mattress with fabric scraps all around me, I looked straight into my phone camera and hit record with a different intention. "What if the people who threw you away had to come back and ask you for help?" I whispered. "What would you make them pay for what they did?" I didn't know it yet, but that question would become the backbone of everything that came next. 8 years can feel like forever when you're counting in survival days. But one morning, I woke up in a very different life. I was 26, the owner of a growing clothing brand called No Return Studio. What began as 3 altered jackets on a rack in a coffee shop had become an online store, a small team, and, recently, my own boutique. The boutique was in a renovated space not far from that first bus station I had stumbled into years before. The sign over the door was simple: "No return." People assumed it was a commentary on our no returns policy. I never corrected them. The real meaning was for me. There was no going back to the girl who waited for her family to come pick her up. Sarah became my business partner. She still ran the coffee shop, but she had invested in my first small collection, then my second. When the online shop exploded, she quit her second job to help me manage orders and suppliers. The missing piece had always been my story. I had dozens of no-return videos saved in my phone, documenting the nights I wanted to give up, the milestones I hit alone, the moments I saw families walking together and had to keep breathing. One day, my social media manager Elise asked, "Why don't you share this?" as she scrolled through the old footage I had half forgotten about. "Because it's pathetic," I said automatically. "Because it makes me look weak." "It makes you look real," she replied. "People buy from people they feel connected to. You don't have to name names. Just tell the story." I thought about it for a week, then another. The old Amber inside me was still terrified of what would happen if my family saw it. But the newer version of me was curious. What if the truth finally stepped out into the light? We pieced together a short documentary-style video. Clips from my early days in the coffee shop, screenshots of that first figure-it-out text with the number blurred, voiceovers of me describing the parking lot, the bus station, the choice not to go home. It wasn't dramatic for the sake of drama. It was factual, honest, and unapologetic. We posted it on all my platforms with the caption, "No return, how being abandoned on a lesson trip built this brand." I expected a few thousand views, maybe some supportive comments. I did not expect millions. The video exploded. People stitched it, duetted it, argued about it. Some called it abuse. Some called it tough love gone wrong. Others shared their own stories of being discarded by family. Hashtags formed around it. Orders doubled in a week. Messages poured into my inbox. I was left at a gas station when I was 10. My parents kicked me out at 16 and called it preparing me for the real world. Thank you for saying this out loud. The comment that stuck with me the most was this: is there any price high enough to make up for being told you were disposable? I tried not to think about my family watching, but I knew they had to see it eventually. We lived in the same country, in the same online world, and sure enough, the first sign that the video had reached them came from a stranger. An email arrived from an address I didn't recognize. "Hi, Amber," it read. "I think I know who your parents are. I work with them. Or I used to. They aren't taking this well." My stomach tightened. A second message followed a day later, this time from someone who said they lived in my old neighborhood. "Your video is being shared around here," they wrote. "People are talking." I didn't respond. I didn't ask for details. But I understood the implication. The story they had always controlled, the one where I was dramatic, ungrateful, difficult, was collapsing in public. Weeks later, another email arrived. This time, the sender's name punched the air from my lungs. Subject: "We need to talk." "Amber, it's Mom." For the first time in 8 years, the word mom in my inbox wasn't connected to a memory. It was attached to a real breathing person who had finally reached out. She wrote about how shocked she was to see my video, how hurt she felt that I would share family matters with strangers, how the story was one-sided and taken out of context. But the paragraph that gave everything away was this: "Your video is affecting our lives. My job is at risk. People at church are asking questions. Your brother is furious. This has gone too far. We need to meet and sort this out before things get worse." There it was. Not, "We're sorry." Not, "We had no right to do that to you." Just, "This is affecting us." For 8 years, I had built my life from ashes. Now, for the first time, I could see the smoke reaching back into theirs. I agreed to meet them, but on my terms. No surprise visits, no showing up at my workplace. I chose a neutral place, a quiet private room above a mid-range restaurant in the city, the kind of place where the walls were thin enough that people downstairs could hear if voices were raised. I wanted witnesses, even if they didn't know the story. I arrived early and sat with my back to the wall facing the door. It was a small, petty comfort, but I wanted to see them before they saw me. They walked in together, like they always did. My mother in a neat blouse and cardigan, my father in a too-tight button-down, my brother a step behind, hands shoved into his pockets. Time had added lines to their faces, but the expressions were familiar. My mother's tense, my father's guarded, my brother's irritated. "Amber?" my mother said, forcing a smile. "You look different." "I am different," I replied. "Sit." They sat. No one touched the menus. "So," my father began, clearing his throat, "you've done well for yourself. We've seen your business." "It's not a business," my brother muttered. "It's a circus. You put everything online and now everyone thinks we're monsters." I met his eyes. "Did I make up anything in that video?" He looked away. "That's not the point." "It's exactly the point," I said. "I told the truth. You don't get to be angry that people believe it." My mother's hands twisted in her lap. "Amber, you know it wasn't meant to hurt you. We thought that trip would finally snap you out of your laziness. We gave you everything. And you still—" "Everything?" I interrupted. "You abandoned me in a parking lot hours away from home and told me to figure it out. You never called. You never came back. You didn't file a missing person report. You didn't check if I was alive. That's not a lesson. That's abandonment. Silence. The kind that makes people in the next room stop talking for a second." My mother opened her mouth, then closed it again. My father stared at his hands. Finally, he spoke. "We're not here to argue about the past," he said. "We're here because things have gotten complicated." There it was, the real reason. "What kind of complicated?" I asked, my voice flattening. He hesitated. My brother exhaled sharply. "They're in trouble," he said. "Financial trouble. The video didn't help." My mother flinched. "We had already been struggling, Amber. Your father's company downsized. We refinanced the house to cover debts. And now, after your video, people talk. Jobs disappear. Clients don't call back. We're close to losing the house." I watched her talk, and something strange happened. I didn't feel pity. I felt distance, like I was watching a scene I'd already written. "You dragged me here to fix your financial mess," I said slowly. "We thought maybe you could help," my father admitted, "just until we're back on our feet." "Because I'm successful now," I said. "Because the girl you left on the side of the road figured it out, and now you want in." My mother's eyes filled with tears. "We are your family." "For 8 years," I replied. "You weren't." I took a deep breath and leaned forward, folding my hands on the table. "I'm going to be very clear. I am not your safety net. I do not owe you a bailout for choices you made without me. You chose your version of responsibility the day you left me there. These are the consequences." My brother scoffed. "So that's it? You get rich off telling everyone what terrible parents they are and leave them to drown?" "Careful," I said quietly. "You're the one who brought up drowning. I remember exactly what it feels like." For a moment, I considered offering something. Money, advice, a connection. Then I remembered sitting on that curb at 18, reading a text that told me to figure it out alone. "I figured it out," I said. "Now you can too." I stood up. My mother reached across the table, fingers brushing my sleeve. "Amber, please. We're going to lose everything." I pulled my arm back gently. "No," I said. "You already lost the one thing you thought you'd always have, a daughter who would keep forgiving you no matter what." As I walked down the stairs and out into the street, my phone buzzed again. A notification from my channel. Another 100,000 views on the no return video. Comments flooded in, people arguing about whether I was right to cut them off. For a while, I thought that was the end. They had asked for help, I had refused, and life moved on. Orders kept coming in. We launched a new collection inspired by patched roadmaps and motel signs, an inside joke I didn't explain to anyone. Interviews rolled in, not just about the clothes, but about my story. Podcasters, bloggers, small documentary channels reached out. I agreed to a few, but I set boundaries. No names, no locations, no identifying details. The story was mine, not theirs. Or at least that's what I told myself. Then, one night, long after I should have been asleep, an email landed in my inbox. The subject line was simple. "Please read." It was from my mother. "Amber," it began, "I know you don't owe us anything. I know we hurt you in ways we can never undo, but I am begging you to understand how desperate things have become." She described late mortgage payments, creditors calling, my father's health taking a turn from stress. She wrote about social whispers, people avoiding them at community events, the way neighbors had started treating them like a cautionary tale. "You have told your story to the world," she wrote. "I can't say you're wrong, but that story has destroyed our lives. I lost a promotion. Your father's company is distancing itself from us because of public image. We are drowning. And I am asking you, not as your mother who failed you, but as a human being, will you help us?" For the first time, there was no denial. No, "You misunderstood." No, "You're being dramatic." Just, "We failed you." I read the email 3 times. Then I forwarded it to my lawyer. Yes, I had a lawyer. When your story goes viral and people start suggesting book deals and brand partnerships, you learn to protect yourself. I had already talked to him lightly about my past, more in terms of liability and defamation than anything personal. I called him the next morning. "Hypothetically," I said, "what happens if parents abandon their adult child in a way that could have ended badly, then later it comes out publicly, and they now want money from that child?" "That depends," he replied. Were there any financial agreements broken back then? Savings in your name? Inheritance taken? Educational funds used without your consent? I hesitated, then remembered. My grandparents had left a small education fund when I was younger. I had overheard once that it was used up by the time I finished high school. No explanation, no college money. I think there was, I said slowly, an education fund. In my name. It disappeared. Find whatever paperwork you can, he told me. If they misused funds intended for you, we might have leverage. Not necessarily for jail time, but for negotiation. The word echoed in my head all day. Negotiation. That night, I opened my video archive and watched the early clips. The shaking voice, the red eyes, the stubborn way I refused to say mom or dad out loud. How many times had I wished they would feel what I felt? The insecurity, the fear, the sickening realization that the people you counted on were capable of leaving you behind. Now, for the first time, I could give that feeling back to them. But with documentation, contracts, bullet points. I replied to my mother's email. Mom, I wrote, I hear that you're desperate. I'm not blind to what's happening, and I'm not heartless. But if we're going to talk about help, we are going to talk about everything. That includes what happened to the education fund Grandma and Grandpa left in my name. I have already spoken to a lawyer. I paused, then added, Hey, if we meet again, it will be with legal representation present, and it will be on the record. If you truly want to make things right, not just for your finances, but for what you did to me, you will agree to that. If you're only looking for money without accountability, don't reply. I sat there staring at the blinking cursor. Was I really sharing this with a woman who had once forgotten I existed long enough to drive away? I hit send. Her response came faster than I expected. We will come, she wrote. We will talk. If we have to sign something, we will. Just please, don't let us lose everything. We met at my lawyer's office. No restaurant. No sentimental location. Just a conference room with glass walls, a long table, and a stack of documents waiting at one end. I arrived with my lawyer, Mark, and my business partner, Sarah, who insisted on coming as moral support. She had been there when I was nothing but a shaking 18-year-old with a coffee-stained apron and a backpack full of fear. She had earned the right to see how this chapter ended. My family walked in looking smaller than I remembered. My father's shoulders were hunched, my mother's eyes ringed with exhaustion, my brother's bravado dulled. Thank you for meeting with us, my father said quietly. No eye contact this time. Mark nodded. Let's get started. He slid a folder across the table. Amber has gathered evidence that an education fund left in her name by her grandparents was used to pay for family expenses without her consent. The amount, adjusted for interest, is here. She is within her rights to pursue legal action. My mother's face went pale as she read. We used it for bills, she whispered. You thought she'd never be in a position to challenge you, Mark said evenly. You didn't disclose it. You didn't ask permission. That's not thinking. That's taking. My brother shifted angrily. So what? She sues us and ruins us completely? Isn't she doing enough damage already? Sarah spoke for the first time. Amber didn't ruin you, she said calmly. You did that yourselves when you left her, and then buried the evidence. My mother blinked hard, a tear escaping despite her effort to hold it back. What do you want from us? She asked, turning to me. Just say it. If it's money, say it. If it's an apology, I'm giving it. I am sorry. I am so sorry. I believed her. For the first time, I believed she meant it. But I had spent too many years holding myself together with apologies I gave myself in the dark. I needed more than words. I want 3 things, I said, none of which you're going to like. They waited. First, I continued, you sign over the house to me. Full ownership. The mortgage debt will be refinanced under my company. I'll handle it. You will move into a smaller place you can afford. You don't get to cling to a house that was partly paid for with money that was meant for my future. My father stared at me like I'd slapped him. That house is our life, he said hoarsely. So was that fund, I replied. You took it without asking. I'm taking the house with a contract. My mother opened her mouth, closed it, then nodded shakily. What else? Second, I said, you sign this statement. I slid another document forward. In it, you acknowledge what you did on that trip 8 years ago. You state that you left me intentionally, that no one forced you, that it wasn't an emergency or a miscommunication. You admit it was wrong. This will be kept on file with my lawyer. If you ever try to challenge my story publicly again, we release it. My brother swore under his breath. You're blackmailing us. No, Mark cut in. She is protecting herself from defamation. The statement is voluntary. You can refuse and go to court. You might prefer that. My brother went silent. My mother's hand shook as she picked up the paper. I watched her eyes move across the lines, watched her relive that day in every sentence she read. You want us to put this in writing? She asked, voice breaking. Yes, I said. You taught me responsibility, remember? This is accountability. Written down. What's the third thing? My father asked quietly. I took a breath. This was the one that would really cost them. Third, I said, you sit down with me on camera. One time. We record a conversation where you tell the truth. I won't name you publicly. Your faces can be blurred, your voices distorted if you want. But you will say, out loud, that what you did was wrong, that it wasn't my fault, that no child deserves that. I won't post it unless you approve it, but the recording will exist, and you don't get to twist the story later. My mother stared at me like she was seeing me for the first time. You really built all this from that day, she whispered. From what we did? No, I said. I built this in spite of what you did, but the story is part of it, and I'm done letting you pretend otherwise. They looked at each other, communicating silently the way parents do when there's no good option left. Then my father nodded. We'll sign, he said. We'll do the video. Just help us keep a roof over our heads. We went through the documents line by line. They signed the deed transfer, hands trembling. They signed the statement of abandonment, tears slipping onto the page. Mark notarized everything, his expression neutral, professional. When it was time for the video, we moved to a smaller room with a camera set up on a tripod. Sarah sat in the back, silent, her eyes never leaving me. We started recording. I introduced myself, my brand, a sanitized version of the story. Then I turned to them. What happened 8 years ago? I asked. My mother swallowed. We were frustrated, she said slowly. We thought you were irresponsible. We decided to leave you at that place and make you figure it out. We didn't go back. We didn't check if you were safe. We didn't call. It was wrong. It was cruel. You didn't deserve it. Hearing it aloud, recorded, was like someone lifting a weight I didn't realize I still carried. What would you say to someone who thinks that kind of lesson is okay? I asked. She looked straight at the lens. Don't do it, she said. You will lose more than you think. You might lose your child forever. We finished the recording. I asked if they wanted anything blurred or cut. They said no. Maybe because they were tired of running. Maybe because they were afraid of what would happen if they tried. When it was over, they stood awkwardly, unsure whether to hug me or leave. My mother stepped forward, then stopped herself. I don't know if you'll ever forgive us, she said. But I hope. Someday. I don't know either, I replied honestly. But I do know this. For the first time, I'm not the only one paying for what happened. And that matters. They left the office with fewer assets than they'd had that morning and more weight on their conscience than any mortgage statement could ever represent. A month later, I took possession of the house. It felt strange walking through rooms I hadn't seen in almost a decade, now legally mine. Their photos were gone. The furniture had been sold. The walls echoed. I didn't move in. I turned it into something else. We renovated the downstairs into a small studio and workspace for no return, and the upstairs into a transitional living space for young adults who'd been kicked out or abandoned by their families. I partnered with a local nonprofit and funded the program myself. Every key we handed to a new resident felt like a brick, laid in the bridge between my past and someone else's future. The video we recorded stayed private for a while. Then, with their written consent, we released a heavily edited version as part of a longer documentary about generational harm and accountability. Their faces were blurred, their voices altered, just like I promised. The comments poured in again. Some people said I was too harsh. Others said I was too gentle. A few said they wished they could sit their own parents in front of that camera and make them admit what they'd done. At night, sometimes, I still think about that parking lot, about the sound of the engine, the way my heart dropped when I realized they were really leaving. But now, when I replay it, the scene doesn't end there. It cuts to me sitting at a conference table, watching them sign papers that put my future back in my hands. It cuts to a kid unlocking a door in the house they once called theirs, now stepping into a room I paid for, funded by a brand built on a story they tried to bury. People ask me sometimes, did revenge fix everything? No. It didn't erase the years I spent wondering what was wrong with me. It didn't magically heal the scars. But it did something important. It shifted the weight. The consequences finally landed where they belonged, and maybe that's what real responsibility looks like. Not the kind they tried to teach me by abandoning me, but the kind I learned by surviving them. So let me ask you this. If the people who broke you suddenly needed you to save them, would you open the door? Or would you make them pay the price of finally facing what they did?